All right, first of all, based upon the circumstances with the Discover card and the photographs, the fact that the same picture of the Discover card was found also in the defendant's computer, along with the indication of the affidavit and the website of the affidavit with all the information, the court is going to indicate that that is admissible, and it goes to the weight, not the admissibility. So that proffered evidence will come in. Now,
just for the record, we would just object on improper character evidence for that, and no 440 notes. That's all.
as to the circumstances as to the gun, the court reviewed and looked at all the case law. As to the state's case law, there's indication basically where essentially where just the description of a knife or the description of the gun just had to be made, and otherwise the information or the gun would be admissible based upon just even a simple description. Also, as well, the evidence itself of the gun does not necessarily, or the weapon, not necessarily need to be present itself. It's just the nexus between. It is distinguishable from the case law that I did review from the defense. In the Madier case, it was distinguishable because there were two other guns that were in there, and the casings matched one of the guns and the bullets matched the other. As were to also in Downs, the gun that was found at issue that they were trying to enter into evidence was not even the type that was used in the case. And as to the Agatheus case, the gun that was found 5 years after the murders were committed, so there was not sufficient nexus in that case as well. So based upon the circumstances, all those cases would be distinguishable from this, and the facts don't apply based upon the circumstances of Red and Gartner, Holloway, Diaz, and Thornton. The information regarding the gun and the bullets would be admissible, and it would go again to the weight, not the admissibility. The other aspect the court would like to address in regards to the Daubert issue as to the rifling markings, essentially it's not a Daubert issue when it's an observation. Even the defense indicates that it's not a Daubert, it's not scientific reliability issue of the rifling markings. So it's an observation that's being made of the rifling markings. There's not any type of opinion that's being made that the rifling markings are matching a specific gun or that specific gun. So therefore, it's not a Daubert issue. So Daubert doesn't apply. And
so, I just want to make it clear, you're saying that if we filed a Daubert motion to exclude the FDLE analyst, you would rule that to be untimely?
well, let me clarify and make clear, Mr. Shapiro. My understanding, what you were objecting to, was the rifling markings on the bullets, the 9mm bullets. That's the specific aspect that you were objecting to as to the FDLE analyst testimony. Is there something else that you're also objecting to?
Well, specifically, and let me lay it out, is that the analyst is going to testify, and the state can correct me if I'm wrong, that they are going to testify that they looked at the bullets, they analyzed them using their forensic tool mark analysis. Based on that, the rifling that was found on there would not match, or I'm sorry, that it would match a specific type of firearm that was stolen from Blake Turpin. Not that it would definitely match that gun, because obviously that gun is nowhere to be found, but they can say that it's the same rifling as that type of gun, which I would argue is expert testimony.
The FDA analyst will testify as follows with regard. I'm going to give you the whole thing.
Please do.
Okay, yes, ma'am. With regard to the shell cases and the projectiles found in the home, the FDLE analyst is going to testify that the projectiles that were recovered from the cabinets and the walls had polygonal markings on them. The FDLE analyst is going to testify that the shell cases that were found throughout the home did not have polygonal markings on them. Okay? The analyst will testify that Cody's firearm, the M&P 9mm core firearm, did not make the markings that were found on the projectiles that were located inside of the wall, because that rifling
It's a totally different type of rifling characteristic, not even in the same family. The FDLE analyst will also testify that the Glock found on the body of Chad Amato has markings that are inconclusive towards the negative side of the exclusion scale, which means
This is what I want to focus on, because my understanding is not the issue as the rifling markings not being on the other guns or matching the other guns. The issue is the ability to possibly match it to the gun at issue with Mr. Turpin. So if we could focus on
Yes,
the
ma'am.
issue at hand.
I understand. I was just giving you the whole spiel. All right, so.
Skip over and just get to that point.
Yes, ma'am. So the FDLE analyst will testify that the projectiles found from inside the walls and cabinets have polygonal markings. I will ask him, are you familiar with the Jericho IWI 946 9mm? Yes. What's the caliber of that gun? 9mm. What's the caliber of the projectiles that were found in the house? 9mm. What were the markings on those projectiles? Polygonal. Does the Jericho firearm unmodified produce polygonal markings? Yes.
I would say all that is expert testimony.
Okay. The observations of whether polygonal markings exist or don't exist, whether it may be expert testimony, the issue that the court's indicating is it's an observation. It's not an issue of scientific reliability. That's why I'm saying it's not a Daubert issue, because it's not an opinion specifically linking one gun to another for this opinion for scientific reliability on how he's matching it, matching those markings, and that type of circumstance. It's an observation, stating that the markings exist and the markings are there. That's what the court's indicating.
One thing to say left over, and then I will not even address this again, is that they make a determination as to elimination or as to matching. Both of those require this tool mark analysis.
But we're not talking about the elimination or matching. We're only talking about the rifling observation that it exists. That's what I'm trying to clarify then. Are you also objecting to him excluding it from the other guns that were found in the home on Cody and Chad? Because that's a whole nother issue.
Before this came up, I didn't think that was personally, and as a team, I don't think we thought that was important enough to really get rid of, truthfully, until this other gun came along. That was what really drew the issue of a Daubert challenge, because they're going to use the tool mark analysis to make the elimination with that type of firearm. That's where I'm coming from, Judge.
Okay, and I'm don't mean to be.
I'm sorry if I'm not clear enough.
I'm not quite clear.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
Basically, they're using the markings and they're excluding the other guns.
Smith,
You were aware of the markings and you were aware of the other guns.
Correct.
And that's been, so all of that is untimely. That has been around for months.
Absolutely.
Since the first, the initial so-called search warrants or otherwise. So
100%.
that would be an untimely Daubert motion. So what I'm focusing on is the issue of the gun that would be, let's call it the Turpin gun, because that makes it easier, or the
Sure.
Jericho gun. The Jericho gun that Mr. Turpin testified to this morning, and the bullets that are found indicating the polygonal markings. Saying that the bullets have polygonal markings and making an observation without tying it specifically and having a scientific opinion. Even when I asked you previously, are you indicating that that's an issue for scientific reliability? Your comment was that's not scientific. The observation is not scientific. So therefore, the fact that that bullet has that is not a Daubert motion. There is not a specific opinion as to that issue. Well, I do agree the other ones may have, for the exclusion process, those are untimely because that motion could have been done months ago and it's not something to be done in the middle of trial. Daubert's purpose is for being a gatekeeper, and that's supposed to be done at the timing or at least enough where after to be done pre-trial, and that wasn't done in this case.
2 points. First, when I said not scientific, I mean, I'm calling that science into question. Not to say that it's not scientific in nature. I'm saying I have questions about its scientific reliability. That's what I meant, and I apologize if it came off differently. The second point is that they're using the exact same methodology to exclude the Jericho as they are to exclude the Smith & Wesson. Once they're claiming that the Smith & Wesson gun does not create this type of rifling, they're saying that that's the end of the analysis, that they don't have to go any further, basically. And the report that I'm going to present when the witness is on the stand, goes into the step-by-step process of the tool mark analysis. They make the determination first as to whether the type of rifling matches, and if it doesn't, just based on the manufacturer. It doesn't really even have to do with the gun itself, it just has to do with the manufacturer. So the moment that they make the analysis that it doesn't match that type of manufacturer, they don't go towards the next steps, because there's no reason to. However, and they did the exact same process for the Smith & Wesson as they're going to do for the Jericho, in that they're going to say that it has the same type of rifling versus it does not have the same type of rifling. That's,
And my understanding is, it's not gonna be indicated as the same, when you're discussing the matters, that it came from that gun or otherwise. So that's the decision of this court. It's not a Daubert issue. Furthermore, based upon the circumstances, all the other aspect, like I stated, it's untimely. The motion could have been made previously and it wasn't.
I understand it's
So-
for the last firearm.
So at this point, the objection's over.
I want to add one point here.
Mr.
The point is
Leichel,
that all those cases that you have read, including the one you're relying on, there were actual physical weapons that were recovered and were there for people to see. By utilizing a picture, you were denying us the right of confrontation where our own expert could fire this gun if it existed, and we would be able to compare it to the projectiles that are going to be introduced by the state.
Mr. Leichel, the board understands as far as all the case law. I read all the case law, but I appreciate your interpretation as well. And the circumstances as indicated on what's being testified to is fine. And at the same time, on every case, the defense, if you wanted them to evaluate the bullets, the defense has the opportunity to hire whomever they wish. However, based upon the case law of what I've read, the court is allowing the evidence, at least of what's being stated. It goes to the weight, not the admissibility. And I understand your opinion, and I respectfully disagree. And in the future, we've already discussed it, one individual on each side at a time to make the argument, but thank you.
Judge, as far as scheduling is concerned, Investigator Anderson just requested at 2 hours into this interview, can we just stop for a few moments?
Well, we're going to,
If there's 2 hours and 42 minutes are left, but
Okay.
he requested.
as far as I'll take an appropriate break, Mr. Stone, when it's the appropriate timing. So I knew there was a break based upon my notes at 10:57, which is why I allowed for the break at 10:57, because I thought it was perfect timing for lunch.
I think it might be because of a medical type of thing.
Okay. Well, is that the case? All right, if it's a medical issue, then we'll take a break at 2 hours.
And one of the, just for purposes of scheduling, we're trying to figure out who we should have here, or maybe who we should call off from coming here. Because we have cross-examination of Investigator Anderson.
All right, understood. How much longer do you have of his direct?
Once this video is over, I probably have no more than 10, 15 minutes at the most.
Okay, and how much longer do we have on the video? We went from 10:57
2
and it
hours and
started about
42
9:30.
minutes to go on the video.
Okay, so it'll probably be another 3 hours. All right, and then I anticipate the cross would be at least an hour? Okay, so we probably got another 4 hours. Right there, we're at 5:30.
Okay, so we can just count on Investigator Anderson being the last
Yeah.
witness for today?
Who else do you have in?
Well, we're probably going to have Jericho Fine and Blake Turpin, and we can probably get Jason Amato.
But
we might be
those,
able to see-
that would be going too late. I mean, if there was a very, very short witness, we could
No.
possibly, but otherwise,
We've eliminated.
then we'll do that tomorrow morning, and we can start up at 8:30. And if there's any other issues, we could do it pre-trial before tomorrow morning.
Okay, so we can call them off then.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome. Okay, let's bring the jury in. All right, State, you may continue.
So we're go back and talk again about this, it's kind of important to me about Cody and you meeting that night. Right. So then that night, which was Thursday night, you meet Cody, because, and did he ever tell you why he left work early? No, I mean, I assumed it was just because he had been on leave early. No, on leave early. Okay. yellow arrow blinking on the corner. The corner.
So these are blinking lights here. Alright, so then where do you and Cody meet?
Like way down this road, like, yeah, further past on that road.
So past, does this dead end anywhere?
I don't think so. I think it might be literally in the middle, and then goes to the depot, and then it goes, and then if you keep going it, which was the way I inevitably took it, where it'll dump you out onto 50, and then I came up 50 to go back to the public.
Alright, so here's the blinking lights. How far down do you think you went? Half mile, mile?
I mean, a significant ways. I mean,
Just an approximate.
I would say it was probably over a mile. Is this something you've done that before? We know, like, you know where if you're on this road, the intersection where, like, it intersects with another road, and then it's got like a guardrail or something like that right there. It was still past that area, but it was close to that intersection.
Was it in the roadway, like off the roadway or in?
Yeah, it's off the road.
Just off the roadway, okay. Yeah, I'm not.
It's like, it's back there in the country.
So you're going to eat.
Right.
And approximately what time? I'm not going to the exact what time you get out.
Like 10:30, 10:30, something like that. Only about 10 minutes or so.
And what was the conversation?
Conversation was basically that he was brought up to speed, you know, and that he would take care of it.
He was brought up to speed by what?
He was brought up to speed on like why out here.
Who brought him up to speed?
My mom.
Oh, he told him.
Yeah.
He told you that mom had told him.
Right.
I just the argument or when?
Since I had left.
You left the house approximately when?
I left the house at like.
Dark.
It was dark. It was after 9 p.m. But I just don't remember.
So between 9 and approximately 10:30,
Right.
you leave,
Right.
going up to bed, sitting in on Fort Resolution. Cody went to talk to you about 10 minutes. At some point, your mom had spoken to Cody based on what the conversation had been, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And she told him what had happened between you and your dad.
Right.
Okay. Do you think that's why Cody left for?
I mean,
Why did they say he left for?
no, he never said why he left work, but in my mind, I was just thinking, oh, he had been let off work early like three times already this week, so I was like,
10:15 and you drive Cody. What's he driving?
he drives in 96, or 97 on the Accord.
Okay.
Yeah.
You had a conversation and he leaves to go home.
Right.
And you leave to go where?
And then I stay in that general area just so that if anything happens, somebody like knows where I am.
Okay, how many stay there?
I stay there for, I mean, like a couple hours, I would say.
Did I know where you were talking
Like, I
about?
would go, like, kind of just up and down that road a little bit, just on my car, and just, like, sitting there, but
Then you also just kind of like a standard slim built person. Okay. I was what you read. I wore my suit, just like a men's warehouse gray suit, or like brown shoes. Okay. And you said the interview was from what time? I'm sorry. No. My interview was scheduled for 10 in the morning, but right, because I was told that I had to print out like my resumes and my other things, but I wasn't able to the night before. So I brought my service thing that I could print it out earlier. So I got there at 9, like maybe. What did you print out that? I actually didn't. I mean, they said they couldn't, but they already had copies of it, so I didn't have to worry about that. So you had the interview and started the process about that? Like 9:40. 9:40 went to 11. I think it was about an hour. So like 10:30, 10:40 or so. They didn't offer you a job, that they may have something coming forward. It seemed like promising, but then they said that they had one more person interview on Tuesday or Wednesday of this coming week. So, but they said that I would hear something from them regarding like Tuesday or Thursday. Well, let's back to the second. When you left that house, right? What were you wearing? When I left the house, I was just wearing like my like black pants, and then just jeans, or just like the workout pants, No, just like workout pants. Okay. And then I had a black shirt on, and then was I wearing a jacket? And I think just like one of my sweaters or jacket or something. And you changed where to go to the in the parking lot at the place. That's okay. You go to that interview, let's say you're there till maybe 11 o'clock. Right. Approximately. Where'd you go from there? From there, I pretty much just drove around. I was thinking of like passing by the house, but I inevitably decided against it. And then I felt that I had to do like a skills checkup for the same exact thing. Then I switched into just like scrubs. Okay. But then that didn't end up needing to be done today, or on the same day. And then I was pretty much just driving around. I ended up going to Waterford, or I got back to the public area at one point, because I wanted to see if I could get my phone service back. But then I was told that I'm not like a registered user. Did you go to the phone store then? Yeah, which one? The Verizon. The Verizon was just right there in the same place. In the public plaza. Right. Like it's right next to the Zaxby's. It's where the family dentistry. Oh, yeah, you go to the building, I think. Right. It's like a little strip, 4-block store. Yeah. Okay, that's where it's from. Where you trying to go to Water Lake Hills? Right. Okay. So, talk to them? Yeah, I'm trying to get my phone service back. Yeah, I girl. It was a guy. What is it like? He was a young guy, like, maybe in his early 20s. He had black hair. I think he had, like, a goatee. Okay. What time was that, probably? I think that was the first place that I went to when I came back, so I got out of there around 11, maybe like 12 or 12:30 or something like that in the afternoon, I think. Okay. Couldn't be phone because why? Because I was told that I wasn't a registered user, because it was under my dad's name, sure, and everything. And then I was told I was a registered user, and then that basically they can't do anything unless he gives the time off. Right. They come over after for a Right. Didn't work. It didn't work. And then you went where? And then after that, I went back, and I think I just sat in my car for a little while. I was just thinking, okay, well, how am I going to do this with everything that just happened? And from there, that's where I think I decided that I was going to maybe drive by the house. Did you go drive by? I didn't drive by the house. I was starting to go there down that Fort Christmas Road, and then I was just like, I'm not gonna do it, because it was where I went. I was like, Dad's probably at work. I don't know if Cody works again today, and just like with everything that had happened. When you drove down there? Yeah. Any friends? No, I had seen like a couple cars like that behind me, but like just standard, like just a little bit of traffic. But then
choose not to do that. Then I go back towards the Goldenrod Express Scripts area because I thought I had to do the skills checkup then. So then I'm going back that whole like Goldenrod area.
Right.
I think I missed my exit, and then I had to get off at
You go forward again?
yeah,
Expressway?
yeah,
Okay, so you're going back and forth on the four-way?
right.
Okay.
And then I missed the Goldenrod exit, and then I don't even think I get off on Center. So then I end up like needing to go off on Crystal Lake Drive, and then I connect up with 50, and then go all the way back to the Goldenrod Road.
Okay.
But then I stop off and I see if there's like any email updates or anything like that. And then,
Check your email.
yeah,
Nothing.
and then there was nothing. So then I was like, oh crap, it's not like today.
But you got the paper thing, you got the money
Right,
in your account.
right,
You got a police card today?
right,
You still have a gas card?
yes.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, you use it.
I had used Cody's card to pay for one of my bills that was outstanding. It was just one of those from that site. It was just like a bill that had back.
How much was that?
$599.99.
Okay. Oh, you know you're doing it?
Yeah.
He says okay to do that?
He said to use this to like survive until things get figured out. Because he knows that I only have, a few $100 in my hand.
When
He
did
told
you,
you about that night that you
Right.
used his card and pay off what needed to be paid off?
Yeah, but he said to use it for like necessity.
did he get to you?
Yes.
And he gave it to your ticket?
Yeah.
But that's normal for him. He
Yeah.
he was just seeing it on your, he was putting those in your bill.
Right.
That's not right. Okay.
So then after the realization I didn't have to do any skills check off, then after that, that's where I go to Waterford. And then at Waterford,
You saw me room there?
I go from there because I think I'm going to get something to eat.
Okay.
This was like right before I went to the hotel, so it was like 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon maybe. And then there, I think about getting something to eat, but then I don't really want to use like the other cards to pay for something, and I know that I only have a little bit, but I'm gonna have to like sleep somewhere, and again, I'm trying to use like my money for that type of stuff. So then I'm only in there for like 10 minutes or something like that, and then I end up leaving from there, and that's where I go to the DoubleTree, and then that's where I checked in, and then out that DoubleTree on. I only came out of the DoubleTree to I think get like a water bottle out of my car and get like my razor out just in case I need to shave or something like that.
In your room? What's in your room? Back to that.
At the DoubleTree, it's my leather, like just shoulder bag, and then it has my other small leather shoulder bag, I guess you could call it, like really like satchel.
Okay, what's in it?
In the satchel, it's just got some batteries, some protein bars, just some like ration type food, and then in my big carry, it's got just like some clothes, standard clothes. It has my like all the electronic chargers and whatnot that I can get, just kind of like grabbing and putting in there, and then it has my service, my cell phone, and my iPad.
Yeah.
And then, they've got like some like bills, like some previous bills.
Does your cell phone have a lock on it?
Yes,
What's the lock?
2112.
2112? For the lock on the cell phone? How about that?
Yeah, I don't know, I never turned it on.
Oh, you never used it?
No, I've used it before, but I never turned it on since I got back. Because my dad was like keeping all of that stuff like locked and shut.
So, right, talk to them?
I messaged the girl that I was talking to. Yeah.
Much better, you got to pay for it.
Right.
Is there any fun about it?
I think once, like one or two responses.
What's your Twitter address? I'm sorry, I'm not a Twitter person.
No, it's just Grant A. It's just what it is.
It doesn't Grant A.
What is it?
Grant space A.
I think if you type in Grant space A, it'll like pull up my picture, but it's like one of those Grant space A 800 495 now, yeah, it's got like 9 numbers after it. That's why I have no sort of person on it. I don't want that much problem. So are you say that are you if the somebody takes a pass you by? How could you explain to me?
So the service and iPad have no password.
The service, my computer has a password, but again, it's just 212.
Did you know that address?
Yeah, you never got it. And then, but with the iPad, I don't know if it has a password on it, because I never turned that on again, once I got it back.
Okay. So, you stay there, everybody else is away.
Right.
Nobody else is around.
Nobody else.
It's rated in your name.
Right in my name.
Okay. You come out and do what? You drive over there, you go where are you going?
I was gonna go down because I had like one bottle of water in my car, and I had just finished eating like just a little granola bar, and I thought like, I'm just gonna go down and get my bottle of water.
And you got what? You got that.
All the police officers were there.
Okay.
Real quick, do you know if there was a password on the iPad prior to your dad taking it?
Yeah, but it was just, they were always like doing them too.
Okay,
Was
so
what I-
everything was the same.
Yeah.
Here, we got a better map, just to, and I can't do that, but. Line.
Like middle, okay. We park up there, it's pretty, and it's up, there's your house. Here's the guy with the fence with the lights there. And you went down Fort Christmas going towards county. And I would suspect this is about somewhere around a mile, give or take, from your
Do you
development.
remember a cross street or anything that it was near?
I don't know if it's on here.
Yeah, we should.
It would be a road that's like coming in this direction, where,
Line road or like somebody's private road?
no, it's like a side road. It's like a road that inevitably collects back up with 415. And it's like,
I think what you're saying that road, it should, come back to, 50, if I'm not saying, I think there's a split, or it's split off in the old, deal line.
oh, it was before that. Yeah, it was before that split, where you take that.
You know,
Yeah, but it was before that, where there's another road that's intersecting that has like a metal guardrail, like a long metal guardrail. It's just like a little, I don't know, I can't really describe it. It's like it should be a road that's coming in from this direction. I said, no, I mean, unless it's like one of these that's just like right off the map or something like that.
here is, this goes back out, if I'm not mistaken, it goes back out to where? Lake Picket Road goes all the way from Personal. It comes out across this 419, the road 419, goes back through some developments, some new developments, winds its way around, and kind of looks like that. Does that look about right? Fort Christmas, before that road comes in, it's a good road.
Yeah.
There's a stop sign that way, so probably take right around there before you get back into the billboard for the property.
Yeah.
Could that have been it? Like right around there?
It's close.
There was a church right there, the Catholic Diocese of Orlando, we've got the property there.
No, I mean, all I can remember is just
Well, it's right here.
and all that.
Because right here, and it's kind of hard to see, is where you live at.
Right.
It's right, I think right there.
Yeah.
Salt's right there.
So then, yeah.
That other road comes down, you say where the lights are down that way, and the only real road that comes down and goes back to the east.
Yeah,
would be that right here. So it's probably that.
I do not know.
But it looks like a decent sized road, it wasn't like a little driveway, or something like that road.
And then it winds through.
It's gotta be like Pickett.
Okay.
So highway, was it 420? 420. Somewhere in that.
Somewhere like there.
And then, when you left Cody, what did you say he was gonna go do?
Cody said that he will take care of it,
Take care of what?
just the situation that was at hand, with whatever he's been updated with from my mom.
Did he tell you what he was updated?
He had told me the reason why, like, I didn't kicked out. But he really didn't give me that much dialogue, like, about that situation. You know, he was messed a little bit because, you know, he just got off work, and I had to go deal with this. And then after that, I mean, it was just, he gave me the debit card to say, you know, to use this in case of emergency. And then, I mean, that was pretty much it, because I don't know if, like, it or
kind of embarrassing as you're an adult male right now. He's been abusing you for years, has he not?
Yeah, I mean, more mentally over the
But it has been to the point where you was a 29-year-old man, right, 29? And you're afraid that your father would kill you.
Yeah. And I mean, again, it's like, you know, at the house, I mean, I have like no access to anything. So I mean, it's literally just like me, and you know, and so like,
Access to anything, you mean what?
well, you know, anything to defend myself. You know, like I hold all my guns.
Does Cody have guns in the house?
He does, but they're like locked up somewhere.
Jack has guns in the house?
Again, yeah, but they're locked up somewhere.
And you don't have access to them?
I don't know how to. I don't know how to. I don't have any keys to the doors inside the house. All I had was my car key. That's all they gave me.
And that night when you argued with your father and you said he grabbed your shirt and pulled you off the couch, did he do anything else to you physically?
No, he didn't like pursue it anymore. He was just.
Did you tell Cody that he acted that way towards you?
No, I didn't.
Cody had no idea that there was a heated physical, just the argument that you needed to get out because you were talking to this girl.
Right.
We come and talk to you. Remember, if you're volunteering with us to talk to us, why do you think we're having this conversation?
I honestly don't know, but I'm pretty freaked out at this point because, you know, I mean, I know like how the situation was when I left, and, you know, I thought that it was weird to begin with that I hadn't gotten any communication whatsoever. I mean, like I told you, my brother, Cody, the last time, when I was away from the house, that he was the one who outreached to me via email because he hadn't had my phone or anything like that. So, I mean, I thought that it was weird, but I just been kind of putting it out of my mind thinking, hey, you had to go to work or they're going to do something.
When you were here, don't tell me, but hang out. Watch TV?
No, I didn't turn on the TV. I had on just like music in the background, just kind of help me go to sleep.
I know the things you travel a lot for work. They can tell because the TV, every channel you've been on, when the TV is turned off, and they have a problem. Yeah, and they have a problem with people stealing for that.
No,
So those things are well monitored. You know, if you want to look like a cheap.
I never even touched the TV remote. I didn't turn on that TV at all. I was just using my service like watching YouTube initially, and then
You were using the service to check things.
Right.
So, you know, make history record where you went on it.
right, yeah.
Okay. And the child was told the truth always is the best thing to do, correct? Correct. You agree with me?
Yeah.
And accidents happen, and things in the heat of the moment, things happen that we wish hadn't happened, but we may, I've been doing something that my kid would make me so aggravated, I'll snap at him and then walk away and say, wow, I'm sure not done that, that was not very adult of me to snap at my child or something. Yes, they're wrong, but I should be the adult and not snap at them.
Right.
Tell me what you think, because I can tell that I've done this for a long, long time, and I read people the way they act, and the way they talk to me, and the way they answer questions. There's something you want to tell us. I can see it in your eyes, I can see it in your body language, and just the way you act. Now's the time. Now's the time. There's something you want to get off your chest, and give us an explanation of what's bothering you. Now is the exact time to do it. And I'm giving that opportunity. Right now, tell me, something you want to get off your chest. It's there, in your face, it's in your eyes.
That was about that night.
You're upset about it. You've been there since we talked, you have either something been bothering you. Even though I don't know you from out of town.
All right, members of the jury, just briefly, I just want to instruct you that you're about to hear from the recorded interview that contains opinions and statements of Investigator Anderson and Maltari to Grant Amato. These opinions and statements are only pertinent to explain the reactions and responses they elicit. You are not to consider these opinions and statements by the police officers as true, but only to establish the context of Grant Amato's reactions and responses. Now you may proceed.
And
know just before we act.
If we need a new.
Members of the jury, the last comment regarding by Investigator Anderson raising his hand, swearing to God as far as to tell the truth and will always tell the truth, you're to disregard that as any type of bolstering of his credibility or circumstance. Again, anything that's said is simply for the reactions of the defendant, but that is not any way to assume that there's more credibility to Investigator Anderson. You may proceed.
Or we ask you a question. Now's the time to come to Jesus, be honest, because you're holding something back. I can see in your eyes. People don't believe that the police will help you, but we are actually here to help you with issues you may have. I think something happened, and you don't want to tell us, but right now is the time to get off your chest. And I really wish you would, because it will make you feel better in the end. I genuinely don't have anything else that I can say about the night or the period of time afterwards. There's only one opportunity to make that good impression. And we've done something we shouldn't have done. You call your hand a cookie jar, you do it. Now,
Is there anything else that happened in the house that you can tell us that you left out, but we haven't asked you, that would be important? Or during the time that you drove around for those few hours? Did you ever really go back to the house that you haven't told us about?
something that happened that caused you to defend yourself. No, because again, it's like I didn't have any need to defend myself. I mean, I didn't. Well, we know from talking to there's weapons in the house. Right. We know that to be a fact. Something happened that caused you to defend yourself. Whether you had anything or not, you found something to defend yourself with. I can't tell you everything. I'm not going to tell you everything. But something happened. Whether your dad blew up on you, threatened you, physically harmed you, or hurt you, something happened that caused an altercation. I didn't do anything at the house besides get my stuff together and take it out to my car. And that's, I didn't, besides that one thing I told you guys where I was going down the road to come back maybe, besides that,
You saw nothing that was out of the ordinary?
no.
In the Fort Christmas area or 419 area?
No,
Did you even get up to the playground Fort Christmas area where that guy's blinking lights are?
no, when I came back I didn't come up to there. There is, and you're better than I am, I'm going to that. There is digital footprint and there's ways to see things that we know that don't make sense. Even though your phone may not have service, there's still issues with the phone. Right.
And it was on you the entire time?
Yeah.
You left the house until you were in touch with law enforcement?
I can track places you've been, and I know where you have been.
figure out something I can't help people, let me help you.
So where's the missing piece? What have we missed here?
I mean, when I come back that other time, I crossed in front of the new fence, the red blinking light one. I remember that. I can't remember. That was Friday the day, when you said you were gonna come back. Right, yeah. Okay. But after you did your interview. Correct. Okay. Yeah. If you did that, you would have seen something, and it would be something out of the ordinary that you would have seen. If you passed that, you passed something out of the ordinary. What was it? I saw like a news van, and then I don't think there might have been like a cop car there. There was like traffic being human nature. Human nature. What do people do when I go back to my own neighborhood? And I've lived a couple places in Central Florida in the 23 years I've been here. I see something major going on. I get on my phone, or I get on my computer, and I wonder what's happening in my neighborhood. And look.
Spark your attention.
There's a digital footprint of where I mentioned. I don't want to use your phone. They tell me I looked at these maps on my phone. It's all there. They're every year. You can't delete it. You can't. You came back to the neighborhood. You saw some things that are really out of the ordinary. And I don't believe for a second you thought that I'm not going to put what happened in my neighborhood. I mean, I didn't search it up on anything on any of the devices that I have. You searched it somewhere else. Remember, like I said, I know things that you don't know. And honesty will get you all the thing I can do for you, y'all. I can't deal with someone who lies to me, but I'll deal with someone and help them till the end. No matter what, believe it or not, that's just me. It's just like, it's what it is. I'm going to be honest with you.
Members of the jury, we have a couple matters to discuss, but we're going to just take a short 5-minute recess. All right? It'll be just very brief, and then we'll come back. You may be seated.